commonly known as San Antonio. They came from a family about 14, 15 as well. And se juntaron, you know, there's different stories about why they got married and everything and how they got married. But, you know, my dad would say was, mira, me look, who wouldn't want me? You know, that's my dad, my very proud Texan, loud talking father. My mom says, you know, he had a good job. That's why I married him, you know. So there's different reasons, you know, why love comes or why they get together. Some of us are born in Texas, but I was raised in Compton and Watts. I was raised in a barrio in Compton and Watts, a black-brown neighborhood during the 50s, 60s at that time. And, you know, during that time, a lot going on, you know, during the 60s when I was just starting high school, the civil rights movement, the Watts blowouts, Chicano movement. So all of that really instructed me a lot on my view of the world, but also living with a familia ahí in Compton and Watts in South Central LA during that time, you know, really informed a lot of who I am, a lot of the medicina, the traditions that kept us alive and kept us going in spite of the racism, the oppression, the difficulty. Seeing my dad, seeing my mom, my abuelitas, you know, all of that. And then, you know, us growing up in that and trying to figure out, you know, who am I? Trying to figure out who I need to be, trying to figure out as a young boy, you know, what does it take to be a man, you know, in this world, and then becoming a father, you know, and you know, now, you know, I want to acknowledge my compañera Susana, who, you know, is my corazón. She blessed me up, you know, like my grandma would do. She blessed me up before I came to speak. And I had to ask her for that blessing, you know, because I'm not whole without her, not whole without that feminine. Ask her to bring that to me, you know, bring her words through me too, you know. So she's me, I'm her, you know, and that in La Quech. And between us, we have 5 children, Marcos, Renee, Emilio, Paloma, and Tanaya. And then we have 6 grandchildren, you know, together. You know, Mara, Naya, let me see, Harrison, Grayson, Vivian, and más chiquita Elias, who's like 8 months old. And but I'm connected to the National Compadres Network and a group of, you know, wonderful people, wonderful, you know, people who really for over 30 some years have really focused on the sacredness of people and of recovering and discovering again the sacredness of who we are as a people and healing generational wounds, but then the responsibility of carrying that forward and sharing it to the next generation. So that's a little bit about me. You know, I mean, you can go to my website and see, you know, all the things. I'm an author of children's books. I write other books, videos. I do a lot of healing work across the country. And but more than that, you know, I'm just aquí para servir la gente in the best way that I can. So that's a little about me. Yeah.
Thank you, Maestro. I think, you know, we've been focusing on what it means, what brown fatherhood means, you know, and I think, you know, in your experience, you said the National Compadres Network has been around a very, very long time. I'm very interested, but as somebody who, and you and I had talked a few days ago, right? And I said, I feel very much like a toddler, you know, and yes, I have, you know, these 14 years of experience, but in comparison, there's, you know, there's so much more for me to learn. And the process of embodying my medicine has been a very emotional journey, you know, like hearing the call of what I'm supposed to do, of who I'm supposed to be, of how I'm supposed to show up is a very personal journey, you know, for everybody, right? For everybody, for the 2 panelists that we've had. And so I want to hear more about that for you. You know, what was that process like to recognizing that there needed to be a National Compadres Network? What were the stories that informed that? What was that emotional journey like for you?
Yeah. Well, you know, I believe, you know, actually the ancestors set me on that path. Sometimes you grow up, you don't know where you're supposed to be. But I remember as a child trying to figure out what was going on in my life, you know, and knowing that some of the things, you know, there's blessings, a lot of blessings. You know, I grew up with in a family, you know, a lot of us living in a house, a loud talking dad. I mentioned my dad, very loud. Hey, you know, my friend dad talked like that all the time. And friends say, "Is your dad Madison?" That's the way he talks all the time, you know. And he wasn't angry. That was just the way he talked. You know, he bien brusco, bien así era. You know, my dad. You know, I had a big family. So in a big family, you talk loud if you want to get things done. And, it's that in that same voice, I have that voice, right? I've had to learn about the power of that voice. I've had to learn about regulating that voice because sometimes that voice also can scare you, you know, and realizing that my dad carried that voice because many times he was scared too. He never said it, but, him navigating this world, as a very dark skinned brown man, that didn't have formal education was a scary thing, and it's not something that he talked about, but I sensed it later because I became him in that process. I noticed the fears and things like that. So, part of that is watching him and then watching my mom too, that in spite of everything, we grew up in a household where, we thought my dad was the boss, the que era el mero mero and everything. And we want to go out. My mom is, I want to go out someplace. Wait and ask your dad. Wait and ask your dad. And it's okay. Aquí viene mi daddy in his car and he gets out. Can I go ask him? No, espérate, mijo. Let me feed him first, right? Okay, pues didn't realize that when she was going to feed him, she was feeding him information too. Because if she wanted us to go, it says que Jerry quiere salir, and if she wanted me to go, he's been doing good and doing all of that. I think we should let him go. And if she didn't, Jerry quiere salir, pero ese fregado niño está haciendo esto. So, okay, mijo, go ask your dad. My dad was set up, and my mom fed him information. And what I didn't understand at the time is that my dad's sole thing was to please my mom, even though he didn't do it sometimes, and even though some of his behavior was the opposite. His real intent was, whatever your mom look que quiere tu mamá, it was that. And so when we'd go ask my dad, my dad didn't, well, Dad, can we go out here? Well, what'd your mom say? No, but she told me to ask you. Yeah, but what did she say? I'm just like, why did she send me over here for? You're going to send me back? Well, we'll go ask your mom, look, whatever she says. It's like, dang, why are you go back? So Mom, and I go, what did your dad say? Like, guys don't communicate? Okay. It's like, what? But what I then realized later on is that ritual, that ceremony, right? I go ask my mom, she says, te voy a lugar a tu daddy, right? And then go to my dad, te voy a lugar a tu mamá. It's like, what's going on here, right? And then my mom says, okay, sí, pero, whatever. And then the final thing is I had to go get the blessing from my grandma, right? Antes que sale, tienes que dar la bendición. So I go to my grandma, she gave me the blessing, And this whole ritual, those are things that I learned that I didn't understand were central, to us growing up in a healthy way. Later on, we figured out the whole ritual. And hey, Mom, can I go ask your dad? Mom, I know you're going to tell him what, so tell us now so I can start getting ready. So, you're going to say I can go or not. And we would joke, hey, no, how's that? See, and but even when we joked about it, when we teased about it, because now we thought we knew everything. My mom would still say, go to your dad. She gave him a lugar. And so in growing up, trying to figure out all these things and then seeing the pain that came, because I also saw the pain, the difficulty when there wasn't enough work or not enough food or where, things would come up, being with my father at a store and I'm a little kid walking to the store with him to get milk for my sister. She was drinking a bottle. My mom says, to go to the store and get some milk. And so I walked with my dad and he goes in the store and he always had he wore a hat sometimes like this. And so I wear a hat today in honor of my father. And there's a symbolism about that part of my journey was trying to figure out what was under my dad's hat that he never was able to talk about, ever was never to share, ever wasn't able to figure out. So he'd put the hat on to kind of cover it up and pretend like he was big and strong. But underneath, there was so much more. My journey and the journey of the Compadres Network is just take off the hat. Let's unpack all those things. Because if not, you're going to hand this hat to your kids and they're going to have to figure it out. So when I work with men especially, I said, it's your choice. It's your choice whether you take off the hat or the shirt or the bravado. It's your choice whether you take it out and choose to spend the time with us to unpack it, or just give it to your kids. Go ahead, just give it to them. But don't complain cuando tienen problemas, cuando no hay conexión.
Yeah.
But I saw on that day, we went in that store and my dad wanted to pay for the milk, but And there's three guys behind the counter. And they're playing cards. And my dad, hey, quiero pagar, I want to pay for the milk, I'll pay for the milk. And one of the guys looks up and says to the other guy, didn't think we heard, he's a stupid Mexican, make him wait. You know? And I heard that, and I'm looking at my dad like, you know, and he didn't do nothing. Another, you know, quiero pagar, I can pay for the milk so I can go, you know. And the other guy, laughing, says, oh, they used to sit under the cactus all day long. Just make them wait, you know. Let's play another hand. And I'm thinking, why are they saying these things about my dad? Why are they saying these things? And I'm looking at my dad, don't let him say that shit. Handle some business here. Knock them out, do something. And I'm thinking, my dad ain't handling no business here. What's up? You know, finally the man came and, you know, my dad put the money down. He got the change, threw it on the counter, some landed on the floor. My dad had to pick it up from the floor. And when I picked it up, I could see this vergüenza, the shame in his eyes. Because boy had heard that, you know. And he got, hey, go, vámonos. And we get ready to go, he puts his hat on, gets the milk. But see, in school, I was learning to use my words, to share my feelings, to express myself. So I decided to express myself. Daddy, why do you let those men say those ugly things about you? Cállate. And he hits me in the back. Be quiet, let's just go. No, but people shouldn't say ugly names like that, you know, to nobody. Why do you let them say ugly names to you? Be quiet, no need nada. Come on. And then I said something to my dad that I wish I could take back today. I said, Dad, if you were really a man, you wouldn't let those fregado niño, cállese. And we walk out, and he puts his hat on, and he pretends to be bigger and stronger. And we walk down the street, and we don't talk, because he doesn't have words to articulate the narrative that just went on. And he doesn't have the words to share it with me, because he's struggling to hold it inside. And so as a 7-year-old boy, I have to figure it out. And I look at my dad. And because no one is talking in school or anything about racism or oppression and injustice and all of that, they do talk about the stereotype about machismo and all of that other stuff. And you know, and so I'm thinking like, what? And I'm looking at my dad and I'm saying, you know what? I don't want to be like you. You can't even handle business. You let the men talk about you like that. Shit, you know, step up, fool. I'm thinking this, I'm not saying, I'm thinking this. But at that moment, there was a sense of shame because I did not understand. See, I've seen the opposite in my father too. I've seen the aggressiveness. And what he was trying to do at that point is contain that, because he knew what happens when it comes out. Right? And nobody ever thinks about, so where is that journey of that father that has to, and see, what I didn't understand at the time, if my dad would have done what I wanted to do, go kick those dudes' butts, then the police or the migra would have came and they would have taken him away, and then he couldn't work the two jobs. He couldn't work the two jobs, and we didn't get fed, and who knows what. So he sucked it up. And because he didn't know how to process that, he didn't cry. He didn't, you know, he just stoically. And when we got home, we walked in the house and he told me, hey, ¿qué tiene su leche? My mom said, ¿qué tiene? Déjame. You know, and then he goes to the refrigerator and gets a can and goes out to the back oak tree. You know, my mom said, déjalo. But my dad would process, you know. And one of the ways he would process is he would you know, put his foot on that oak tree and you hear him whistle. And you know, what is he whistling? And later on, my mom, that's his mama's favorite song. So he's singing to his mama, saying, Mama, help me. No sé qué hacer en este mundo que no respeta a nadie. Doesn't respect nobody. How do I raise these kids? No quiero ser enojado. I don't want to be angry. Because he knew that if he triggered, it was going to affect us all. And we saw him when he triggered too. So part of my journey was trying to figure that out. You know, one of the ramifications of that is, you know, I made a promise on that day. Ain't nobody going to look at me like that shit. Ain't nobody going to do that to me. And, you know, so then I get to school, you know, and this kid bumps my shoulder, And I look at him like, what's up? And he mad dogs me. And I said, oh, hell no. And I tag him and I hit him and I'm down on the ground. There's nobody gonna look at me. I told you. And they had to pull me off, take me to the principal, get ready to expel me, want to medicate me, diagnose me. Nobody ever asked me, where did that come from? And even if they would have probably put me in anger management and not say it was a systemic thing that came from racial inequity and societal oppression and generations of woundedness. Nobody would have ever said that. And so they would have sent me home and my parents would have got mad at me, maybe punished me. Aquí viene la chancla, right? And I want to talk a little bit about that chancla, because I know you talk about the chancla, and let me just say, I've been doing this work for a lot of years, and we really try and reclaim the sacredness in relationships, and violence is never a good thing. But I also saw my mom's chanclas that got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and prayed for us and made dinner. I saw those chanclas that works in the fields. I saw those chanclas that work in factories. I saw the chanclas that walked to school to attend our parenting meeting. I saw the chanclas that went late at night to go get my brother because he had gotten beaten up. I saw the chanclas that would roo us. I saw the chanclas that that went to church on Sunday. I saw so to me the chancla is sacred, and what is not understood sometimes is that that when it gets to that place, where she pulls the chancla, is there's been so much systemic oppression that has gone on. And I'll tell you, in my home, the goal of my parents was, I better discipline your ass in here, because if the cops get you, we ain't gonna have no control, right? Yeah. And so the reality, and even that sense of, we talk about machismo, part of the work of the compadres, and I'll get to that in a minute, is, unpacking all of that and recognize, that the true sense of machismo was a sense of honor. There's 7 principles, 12 principles of el macho de veras, the sacred. And the first one is honoring all our relations, honoring women, honoring children. We have 7 principles del hombre noble. They'll be in the chat. You'll see the link to that. And it's all about honoring, about sacredness, and rejecting violence, working on your healing. So, and what has happened is this society has, if you will, demonized those things that, that were sacred to us and that were necessary to us. I knew in the barrio that sometimes I had to pull on that so-called macho, because they were going to beat up my sister. Hell no. Was I afraid? Yeah. Would I run? Yeah. But heck, they ain't gonna mess with my sister. So I had to pull on that, and that affects you. That traumatizes you, And so part of that journey, now we get to the journey of me, then some kind of mystically, even, wanting to become a psychologist, right? And I thought it was my choice, right? But I grew up in that environment, trying to figure out trauma and sacredness and healing, trying to stay balanced in the midst of everything that was going on. And seeing my mom and my grandma, they'd bring kids to my mom's house to ayudar niños con empacho and all of that. So she would do a lot of healing and all of, so, and I would help her. So basically they were preparing me. And I didn't realize at the time, but then I chose to be a psychologist. And by the way, that jacked me up, because in learning the Western way of doing, diagnosing and all of that, it just messed me up, because it was completely different from the way we learned to help, the way we learned to be with people, right? That they wanted me to really jam the men that came in, and really confront them, but I was taught not to do that. You don't judge people and confront them and label them. You got to build relationship first, because then you can't get to their heart, to their spirit. So, and we would get criticized by the probation officers because we weren't hard on them. We weren't, even though they had done some kind of, harm and in domestic violence situation, there's no way I was going to get to this man's spirit if I were just saying, these are the things you did wrong and these are the oppressive things. I had to. So where did that come from? Where did you learn that? Where did that wound come from, right? And so as part of this process, you know, I told you at the same time, Chicano movement, civil rights, all that stuff. So I was very much in my cultura, very strong, adamant about Chicano this and, you know, indígena that, and we're already in this indígena path. But there was something that was conflicting me. As much as I was proud of that, the men that I would see that they would send to me all looked like me, like my dad, like my tío. And they were being abusive. They were being hurtful. They were being violent. So it's like, wait a minute. I love my people. I love my culture, but we're hurting ourselves. We're hurting our women. We're hurting our children. We're killing each other in the valley. We're, you know, we're drinking ourselves. We're drug, you know, and it conflicted me. But there was no place that I could send men without the risk of them getting incarcerated, or deported, or. So, you know, at that time, I was working for, earlier, I was working for the East LA Rape Hotline. And I was one of the first staff member, first male staff member, and working sexual assault, domestic violence. So I was doing a lot of work around that, you know, and compadre mine, Ricardo Carrillo, and I, you know, we were struggling with this. And so, well, let's start our own programs, let's develop our own. Not dissimilar to what you did, right? Let's just start what we, you know, forget it. We're not going to wait. And so we called out, you know, back then you had flyers. We sent flyers to all the men that we knew were teachers or social workers or lawyers or advocates and sent them out. And at the bottom of the flyer, we knew enough, you know, in our ceremony and in our healing that you can't have alcohol because it would distort this. So at the bottom of the flyer, we put no alcohol. And literally some of my friends, dude, the whole weekend, we can't drink. How about after the meeting? No, we can't drink the whole week. I mean, not even a 6. No, man. Oh man, I can't do that. And it's literally, I had some of my friends that wouldn't go because they couldn't take a whole weekend. And, you know, and later on I began to think about, wow, the addiction. And these were successful men. These were men that, you know, that supposedly were the leaders, right? Well, 19 men showed up. And they showed up to this gathering, and we knew enough to start with, you know, some prayer and some asking of answers to come in. And then we did a conocimiento. Who are you? What's your intentions? Because some of the people we didn't know. And the second brother in shared his name, who he was, and he wants to help, you know, men and develop our own. He says, but I'm just going to share with you personally. He says, I'm hurting myself. I don't know how to love my wife. I don't know how to love my kids. This is a therapist now. He's a you know, full-fledged therapist. I don't know how to love my wife. He says, and I'm going to share something with you that I've never shared with nobody, and especially men, you know. Let me just say, you know, 1988, this was very not usual for Chicano, Latino, Native men to get together, first of all, without partying, without drinking. So that was, and then to share, and this guy said, I'm gonna share something I've never shared with nobody, especially men. And he says, you know, I know what my issue is. I was sexually abused as a kid. And he began to cry. But it wasn't just a regular cry, it was one of those spirit cries where he could barely talk, and because his spirit is just opening up like that. And when he did that, it's like, you know, it just touched us all. You know, and let me just say, when you ask those ancestors to come in, they come in. And they'll bring what you need. And then they open all of us up. And it was very unusual, you know, for men, especially Chicano, Latino men, to cry. Oh, man. We were all crying.
Yeah.
Right. And as we went around that circle, we realized the therapists, the doctors, the lawyers, the advocates, the músicos, the advocates, we were all jacked up, even though we were so-called successful according to the Western way. That some of us were drinking too much. Some were messing up on their wives, even though they were successful, right? Some of them were being toxic in the way that they were talking to their kids and being with each other. And so we had, from a societal point of view, been successful, but from a personal, familial, cultural point of view, we were as wounded as anybody else.
Yeah.
And when we realized that day is the first step that we had to do is heal ourselves. We had to recover the sacredness. And in order to that, we had to get through the woundedness, recognize the toxicity, recognize that what have we picked up generationally in order just to survive? The locura of drinking, of doing all these, that's not our true sense of being macho. That's that false sense. That's that wounded sense. On that day, we made a commitment 33 years ago that we would do our own healing. and that recognize that to be good fathers, first you have to be good men. And we could not be whole until we recognized the first teaching, which was honoring women. If you don't do that, forget about everything else. So some of the men in that circle had some reparation to do. That became the initial part. And then the final commitment was, we got to pass these teachings on, And believe me, some of the reason men were there is because women sent them there. You better go to this meeting, you better, And we've gathered for years, and mujeres sen, vente, go to the retreat. You got to get, we have, we've been doing this work, for a lot of years. I've been doing it almost, 45 years, and compadres over 30 some years. And we have affiliates and círculos all over, So I want to dispel some myths right here. Because, people say hombres don't cry. I know thousands and thousands and thousands of men that cry very freely. Just give us a space. Just honor us in a good way. Just make us feel safe and sacred. Oh, it'll all come out, So let's dispel the myth that we don't cry. Let's dispel the myth that Chicano, Latino, Mexicano don't. Oh, yeah, we do. But please acknowledge us first. And don't criticize her, and don't put us in a box. They said man box. We don't got no box. We function in a circle, right? But the other part of this is recognizing that, in the compadres network, we have a very strong division of the women and girls, the comadres network and all of that. And we recognize that we cannot be whole unless we walk in tandem, with the mujeres. And sacred manhood to us is about 4 directions. Yes, the masculine direction that is really important for us to acknowledge, but also to acknowledge, in ceremony, you have those 4 directions, that feminine direction, right? And we have that in us too. And sometimes we need to be able to go in that feminine direction. You cannot heal unless you feel, right? So we need to pull on the feminine sometimes. But then there's the 3rd direction, the child. That sometimes we need to be able to play. And you see men all the time, just put on a Raiders, 49ers, Rams, oh man, they're like kids, like, what? I mean, it's like you see, and it's beautiful to be able to check. But in order to be good fathers, you got to be children again. You got to be able to play with your kids, not what you want, what they want. But there's a 4th direction. And that 4th direction is the elder, the wisdom. Sometimes we've got to be wise in what we do. Sometimes we need to sit in quiet, in prayer, in ceremony. Some people might call it meditation for some of you. My grandma didn't call it meditation, but that might be what you all do. But sometimes you need that too. So sacred manhood is all of that. And by the way, it's not binary. We have men in our circle that from every sector of the gender. We have two-spirited that come. We have couples that come. We accept everyone as sacred, that way. So, that journey really is what has, been the formation of the National Compadres Network and everything we do. And, we got all kinds of programs and all kinds of curriculum, fatherhood curriculum, teen fatherhood, rites of passage for boys, and, and healing and circles and all of that stuff. But, so I don't know if I answered your question, but, that's where the ancestors guided me right there.
I'm just speechless. I can't, no puedo decir más que I just like I am in awe. And I could ask, right? Like as you were talking, I'm just like, oh, I want to know more about that piece, and I want to know more about that piece, and I want to know more about that piece. So I'm just kind of trying to think about, feel into rather. The beauty of this journey, right? Just like the beauty of and I'm sure, right? Like I think what stands out most is like there's this transition from when you're a son into when you are a father, into when you are a leader, right? And you're teaching and you are sharing your wisdom with these men, and you're still honoring, right? Like you're talking about that 3rd direction of play, but you're honoring that inner niño also. You're honoring the story, right? And how he liked to play. And so, thinking about just how you've been able to integrate these 4 directions, how you personally, right, have been able to, I guess, break through some of those challenges right? Because sometimes this work is too hard, right? It's too hard, and it's easier to drink. It's easier to numb it, right? One of the conversations that I had last year with my friend Eric, he started a group called Bloom Homie. And I love it. I just love that name, Bloom Homie, right? And he talked about how his father, in order to get to the point where he could cry, he would have to drink.
Yeah.
Right? Like the drinking was a function in order to get to, he's like, he would turn on his chente and he would have his cerveza or his mezcal or his tequila, and then he would finally cry, And so we see that, right? We don't pathologize that drinking because it serves a function. And so I think, the question again is just like, how have you been able to integrate some of the challenges, right? Some of the challenges on a personal level of what sometimes our cultura says would be easier. It would be easier to ignore. It would be easier to turn off. It would be easier to not honor women, right? And to just to hand that hat over, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to learn more about that.
Yeah, we live in a duality. We live in the duality of ixtli y olor, of cara y corazón, of face and heart. But we also live in the duality of night and day. So we all have the light, that the soul comes up. We all have that beautiful light. But we also have the moon, and we have the darkness. And darkness doesn't mean bad, doesn't mean dysfunction. It just means a different way of learning. So there are light lessons that we learn, beautiful joy, but there are hard lessons that we learn too that take us into the darkness. And we must accept them all. It's how you deal with them that then becomes, where the medicine takes you. And when we work, the first step, it's actually not the first step, but I'll just mention it. The first step is showing up. If you want to really go on this journey of sacred manhood and sacred fatherhood, then you got to be willing to go on the journey and show up. But before you show up, tienes que, prepárate. You got to prepare yourself. So I heard one of the brothers say, well, just show up. No, it's not just showing up. You got to show up in a good way. You got to do your own work first, before you show up as a dad, or, you come home, maybe even driving home from work and something happened, tienes que limpiarse before you walk in that house and carry the cargas, and, you got to do your own work. So that's where, the being in círculo, that's where, getting together with other men, that's where the dialogue, that's where the ceremony comes in, because we got to do our own work before we show up, right? And when you show up, then you show up in a good way, it's easy to say, but it's difficult, in practice, because the second step after you show up, truly being present. I don't mean being present while you're watching the game. I mean being present while you're on your phone. If you're going to be a father, you got to be with your kids. You're going to be a partner. You got to be with your compañera or compañero, whoever you're with. You got to be with them fully, right? Put the phones away. Are you willing to do that? Really show up, in that good way. And sometimes it means show up even in your sadness. Even acknowledge, I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling scared, And there needs to be places in your relationships that you can do that and say that to the people you're in relationship with, but in your kids, sometimes, but then it's paying attention. And I'll give you a real practical example, my oldest son, Marcos, he's very much like me. He's a perico. He talks and expresses himself very outward in his expression. So when he was born, it was easy for me to be with him. He likes to play rough and all of that. And so I'm very much like that. So whoever, Creator had mercy on me. He said, we're going to give you the first one because we know you'll jack it up. So we'll give you an easy one that, you can flow with. And so he gave me that first. And not that he didn't challenge me, but, it was easier to connect with him. Well, whoever's up there has a sense of humor, because, once you get it right with one kid, they send you one completely different. So aquí viene mi hija, Renee, right? And Marcos is jackrabbit spirit, pues aquí viene Renee. And she's not, expressive and all of that. She moves real slow and her process is more internal and everything, and so then, when I get in a conflict with Marcos, I say, well, what's the matter? Let's talk about it. And we talk about it and we work it out. And yeah, pasó. Well, Renee, I'm getting in a conflict with my daughter. And I'm just like, oh, what's the matter, Renee? Let's talk this over. Nada. Well, what's going on with you? Nothing. She's not sharing. And see, in my mind, so I'm a therapist too. So I can, why are you being resistant? Why are you denying? Why I can, why are you don't want to interact? But pay attention. And what I have to pay attention, my daughter's a turtle spirit. Mm. She's different. She goes inside the process for a while. And it seems like she's disconnecting or distant and whatnot. But if I want her to connect the way birds connect, well, of course she's not going to do that. That's not who she is. So she's in her room playing with her dolls. I'm a dad. I want to connect with her. What do I need to do? I go sit next to her. I just go sit. I don't know what's going to go on. Daddy, what are you doing? I'm here to play with you, Mija. You going to play with me? Yeah. And she puts a doll in my hand. Well, what the heck did I do with this doll? Right? I'm paying attention. I don't know. And she starts playing her doll with my doll. So I start mimicking what she's doing, and we're playing dollies, and I have to, take out any expectation of what I should be doing and who I should be playing, how I should be playing, how I should be. That's not important. Pay attention to what your daughter needs. And then she puts the doll down and I say, what are we doing now? And she gets up and she comes to the back of my head and she begins putting the little chongos in my head, doing my hair, combing my hair. And I'm thinking, oh, what are you doing now? And then she says, Daddy, you got pretty hair. Mm. You never let me comb your hair before. You got pretty hair. Maybe you comb my hair too. Can you comb my hair, Dad? She says, thank you for letting me comb your hair, Dad. Daddy, I'm sorry for the other day. I know we got mad at each other, but I didn't mean to get mad at you. Sometimes I don't know why I get mad, Daddy, but thank you for playing with me. And it's that paying attention that then allows me the third step of stepping in with my heart and stepping in with love. Now, love can be discipline. Love can be, cariño, and that's where the cari corazón needs to come in. When do you need to step in with compassion? And when you need to say, no, here's the limit. You can't do that. Because, you also have kids que son bien, like their daddies or whoever, mimicking and talking back to mom, I don't want to do that. Oh, espérate, mijo. Wait a minute. Wait. That is not acceptable in this house. You cannot talk. I mean, sometimes that's necessary too, right? Yeah. So the third step is stepping in with cari corazón. And when you're healed, you can then be flexible in knowing what to share, how to be, right? What trauma and woundedness and false machismo is you only step in with the wounded side, with the side that you have learned, whether it's been helpful or not, whether it's been hurtful or not. You step in with a rigid, if you will, addictive pattern. What healing is you're able to heal that, not abandoning that whole totally, but knowing when and at what stage you can then share what, right? The final step is surrendering. Sometimes, you don't know what's going on with your kids, and sometimes you got to say, well, okay, let me just trust. Creator, help me. Somebody help me. And it brings me back to a time, we were going to school and learning English and learning all these things, and then there was conflict because, we would learn we have rights and could express ourselves. And I'd come home and my dad said, throw the trash. And I said, well, Dad, wait a minute. I want to express myself. I got rights and I want to share. And my dad said, see, I'll show you a right here, right? And that's the issue that is very significant, is we have to understand that a lot of the conflict that comes to us is what society has imposed, the assimilation and the racism and the oppression and their judgment on us as people, and especially as fathers who they want to incarcerate or disconnect. But I remember one day, my mom getting, she was my mom, the little lady, but trying to raise a bunch of boys, and her getting really frustrated with us when we didn't, follow what she was saying right away. And she reached in her apron pocket, fregados niños, and she walked out, and she was really upset. And I remember a couple of days later, but my mom would do that. She would reach in her pocket and just kind of get frustrated and walk out. So she wouldn't slap us or, um, a couple of days later, one of my friends wanted to go get an ice cream. And I remembered when my mom would reach in her pocket, I hear this jingling. So I said, well, she's got some change in there, right? And so my friend wanted to get some ice cream. My mom wasn't home. Her apron was there. So I'm going to jack some money from her apron. I was a curious little boy, that wanted an ice cream. And I went in the kitchen and I reached in her apron pocket. And what I pulled out was not money. It was a rosary. Mm. And then I realized what my mom was doing is when she'd reach in her pocket, she says, God, please help me before I beat their ass, right? And sometimes you just got to pray. You just got to go to that spirit and say, help me, because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't care if I'm an expert. They call me an expert. I don't care if I've written children's books. I don't care if I'm an authority. You know what? Right now, that woundedness is just coming through. Help me. Now, the critical thing, if you've been like my grandma, who every day practices those rituals, practices ceremony, it's like exercise. It kicks in right away. If you only call it when you're in trouble, then it may not work. So what traditions, what ceremonies, what practices do you as a dad incorporate in your life, incorporate with your kids, with your pareja? All that is part of fatherhood. What do we incorporate in the good times so when the bad times come? Right now, it's really difficult for a lot of people. If you're not used to being together, it's really difficult. But if you've cultivated that aspect of being together, it's still difficult because we need our space, but it's less difficult, right? So, I think those are, some of the things. And when we work with fathers, and then we work with a lot of men coming out of institutions as well, that have been incarcerated or been deported or been estranged from their families. So part of that is really healing and recovering and really, going through some sense of reparation. Who do you need to repair relationships with, and being able to acknowledge that. And part of it is you too. Part of it is acknowledging and forgiving sometimes and releasing what's gone on in your own childhood and not judging it, but recognize that, your parents were wounded too. So it's that ongoing journey, part of the 7, concepts of el hombre noble, and I'll just read them real quick. Be a man of your word, palabra, right? Say you're going to do something, do it, but, be accountable that way. Accept responsibility for your well-being and those in your circle. And, unfortunately, in this Western society, now we have, a lot of men that assimilate it. So it's about them. It's about me. It becomes individual. Wait, no. And for fathers that don't live with their kids, it's still, you need to live as if, this is all reflecting on your children. I don't care if you don't live with them. I don't care if you're divorced, whatever. I don't care if you don't like the mother of your children. She's still connected to you. Part of your sense of fatherhood is still, even though she may be wounded, even though she may be saying things to your kids about you, how do you not toxify that and put that back on your kids? All of these are tough lessons of taking responsibility for who you are, right? Act with sensitivity and understanding, right? And that's what I, was trying to do with my daughter. Reject abuse to yourself and others. Because believe me, we as men will abuse each other. We abuse ourselves in so many ways. And some of us professionals, right, now just work so much and now intellectualize so much. We meditate more than we spend time with our kids. So now we're on a real healthy healing path and we're spending so much time meditating and going to ceremony. What about your kids? We're over there, the advocates are marching and everything, and the kids are with us. That's great, but that's not what the kids want to do. They don't want to be out there protesting. They want to play. So even in our wokeness, thinking, we're woke and we're teaching our kids to be advocates and teaching them to be healthy and meditate, but that's not what they want to do. So, it's really about challenging ourselves to pay attention, to include, be a mirror to others. How do we then, with other men that are not doing honorable things, how do we bring them into the circle? How do we, and sometimes we got to step up. No, compadre, you can't be doing that, dude. That's not right, and in the barrio in the old days, you would go confront people. straight up, if a man, was abusive to his wife, then the guys in the neighborhood would go, I'll be honest, jack that dude up and saying, you don't be doing that shit because I'll come after you again. I mean, that was the street restorative justice, right? But it's really about, including reflection and ceremony in your life. And then the seventh one, is about living with honesty and with love. Truth. Be of truth. We've learned so much in this society about not being truthful, about just getting by, getting over. No. Just say your truth. And that's really hard sometimes when in order to get to truth, you got to get through a lot of pain. So anyway, I hopefully I answered that question for you.
I don't even remember what my question was, but yes, you answered the question that needed to be answered for so many of us. And I'm just seeing people that are in the chat resonating and, very much feeling what we need to be feeling right now, right? Which is just a lot of reflection, a lot of emotion, right? Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I will not stop. Pero quería darle la invitación a Liz. I wanted to see if Liz might be willing to come in. And then if you have any other questions that you want to drop in the Q&A, there is one that came up. But I want to see if Liz might be able to come in. I don't know if she is here, pero I know she wanted to say hello to you too. Pero si no, I'm gonna have to go back and watch this many more times. We are gonna make this available too. So once you receive the email, you're gonna get a list of resources that Maestro Jerry sent us. And it speaks to this question that somebody shared. They said, Chris Luna says, how do we find local círculos near us or local affiliated programs? I'd love to find more like-minded men locally.
Yeah. So there should be a link in the chat, I believe, and you're going to get sent a link to the National Compadres Network. I want to invite you to connect with us. We have a lot of resources, these 7 principles, and there's to our podcast, to other things that we have available. Along with, if you're in the LA area, there's a East LA fatherhood class that'll be starting in a couple of weeks. We have círculos that go on all across the country. And now we're doing some virtually. So check in with us and sign up to be on our mailing list. But Ozzy Cruz, he's the senior manager of our family and education programs, and he's over all the fatherhood stuff like that. But we can definitely connect you with the círculos. The other part is, we train people in running círculos. We train people in running, and we also have fatherhood curriculum. So if you're interested in that, sometimes we need to step up and begin doing it ourselves. And part of our role is building that capacity, that way as well. So, and again, in that link is my website with, I have a series of children's books and CDs and stuff like that. And then the last book that I wrote is Recovering Your Sacredness. I am starting a book on sacred manhood, sacred fatherhood, which, probably in about a year it'll be done. It's because I'm finishing another one right now, but so anyway, we can assist as a National Compadres Network, let us know. We do a lot of work on healing, not only of men, but, of families. We have a whole unit on young people as well, and invite you.
Beautiful. Otras personas más. Right here we have Johnny asking, how do you connect to your Latino ancestors when you were not raised with your family? When you look white, how do you learn to feel authentic?
Yeah. Well, it's about connecting to all your ancestors. It's, whoever, if you got 4 different roots, well, bring all the grandmas or grandpas in, you got to connect with them. And even if you don't know them intellectually or, know their names or they've never been in your life, they're in your DNA. They're in your spirit. Spend some time in prayer, spend some time in reflection, and begin recognizing, acknowledging the characteristics that you carry, and stories will come out of you. Reflections, memories will come out of you. People say, where'd you get that from? You won't even know. Stuff will happen. You will resonate. But the other thing is when you sit in círculo with other elders, then you'll begin to recognize some things that seem to resonate. In many of the círculos that we run, we have younger men that they never didn't know their dads. But in the círculo, they begin calling me tío or tata, right? And so then find somebody to guide you, find a tata, find a grandpa, that you want to learn from. And in our traditional way, your ancestors weren't just those that were blood related. They were people that helped guide you. And as you begin resonating with those processes, things will come through you, right? But you become the tata. So your responsibility now is now creating traditions, creating ways that you can then pass on as well. So
beautiful. Thank you, Maestro. And then there is another question that I'm very interested in as well. It says, did you ever have a moment where a majority of men in your network were not ready to do the work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in circles, all kind, I'm not just in homogenous circles. I go all over the country. And, I mean, and the reality is I walk in spaces where nobody looks like me, right? Where the stereotypes are judging me. I walked in a conference one time, I'm doing the evening keynote, right? And I walk in right after lunch because I want to see the room, and I just got off the plane and I got a guayabera on and some khakis and I walk in the room, and as I'm standing in the room, looking at the room, kind of checking it out, preparing in my mind how I'm going to speak, and two women turn to me and say, "Can you give me some more coffee, please?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, okay." And it just like triggered me, to all the times that I saw them treat my dad like that. And it triggered me so deeply that I want to say, I'm gonna beat I was ready to go off, but here come the prayers, here come the, and let me just say, I don't have problem bringing people coffee or even being a mesero. That's a wonderful, I would do that, if I needed to work that way. But, so I'm challenged all the time. I'm in groups all the time, in situations all the time where there are people that are, very, if you will, wounded, and men that are acting very toxic. And I have to bring up in a good way, brother, let me share something with you, let me tell you what that reminds me of, what that triggers in me, and try to do it in a good way, but saying, but I would appreciate, when you're in my presence, that you can't be saying those things, this is not good for me, well, I didn't mean nothing, but no, it's not your intention, it's what you said that triggered me. And I wonder how many other people it triggers, so there are ways that we need to find to be able to bring some balance, even in those circumstances, right? But a lot of people will ask, well, how do we get men? Well, invite them to our círculo, or invite us in to do a plática, invite them to hear this presentation. There's a lot of my presentations on YouTube that you can invite, men in to see, and then invite them to a place in which maybe they can go on that journey. It's going to be their choice. They have to choose whether they want to show up, right? And so that's what I would say.
Thank you. Y por último, we have the last question. Somebody had asked, and I'm just going to answer this one for Hector, who is asking if there's a virtual option for any of the círculos, but once you receive the email with the recording, there will be a way to contact to, find out more information. I'm sure, with the pandemia that some options became virtual. This is virtual, right? Obviamente. So yes, there's ways, I think, to be able to have access. But the last question that I'm going to ask from Carlos asks, what is a daily or nightly practice to keep us grounded as men when shit hits the fan?
Yeah. So, I always begin in the morning with gratitude. My grandma would get up at 4:30 in the morning, kneel in that little pillow in front of her Virgen and her candles and everything, and beginning gratitude. Thank you, Creator, for another day. Thank you. Gratitude is real important, regardless of how bad you got it. If you woke up, and if you can breathe, if you give thanks. And living that and teaching that, and even if you got kids that, yeah, man, they just challenge you, give thanks for them. Go watch them while they sleep, and give thanks for them sleeping. It'll give you a break, but the beauty that your kids are okay. And then at the evening, then do your own reflection of your day. What you're grateful for that went well, but also reflect on what you could do better, what you need to do better. I always bring in kind of ceremony and bring in a drum. The drum really helps me a lot. Music helps me a lot. And sometimes just a drum like that. I do this, with kids, and I did this with my kids too. Just listen to the drum, And let me just have you right now with me. Just take a deep breath. Everybody just take a deep breath with me. And just release. As you release, we give thanks for all the ancestors, everything that came through today, all of you that showed up, and all the blessings that you bring. Let me just have you take another deep breath, and I'm going to bring a grandma blessing here, right? And take a deep breath. As you take a deep breath, I want you to understand that you're sacred and blessing just the way you are, just where you're at, however you are on your journey, whatever blessings you have, whatever wounds you have, you're still sacred that way, right? Remind yourself of that every day. And then finally, as we take this next deep breath, let go of anything that's not good, that's too heavy, that's too, that's just not good for you. Just let it go, let it be. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to work it out right now. Just take a deep breath and release. And then finally, give gratitude for yourself. And this next breath, I'm going to ask you to smile. When you take this breath, I want you to be smiling. Your cheeks got to be smiling, your nose, your butt, your cheeks, everything's got to be smiling. Joy, bring joy in your life. It's okay to be joyful, regardless of how difficult things is. So let's bring joy in our life by bringing in a really happy, joyful smile. And then go share that, release that, and share that with the world, So what I'm asking you to do is share some joy with people, right? Call people you haven't called, tell them you love them. Give gratitude to your kids, even the traviesos, even the mocosos, even the ones that challenge you because they're a lot like you. Give them thanks, hug them, love them, and then in the end, love yourself. So that's a little bit right there. If you do that, that'll help you a little bit.
Thank you, Maestro. And I want to share, because in the curanderismo apprenticeship, they're telling you to keep your altar very sacred, right? Like make sure that the energies are clear and intentional. And one of the things that I do with my altar is I will always welcome my children to come and place offerings on the altar. So they go out into the garden and they find whatever weeds, little weeds. My little 4-year-old will come with like a weed and say like, this is for your altar. And I said, yes, mijita, go place this on the altar, because you want that energy also, right? And so, when you mentioned that, I was like, yes, bring in that energy, bring in that joy. So, oh my goodness, Maestro.
Let me just tell people, especially the last guy that asked, in the book, Uncovering Your Sacredness, there's a lot of practical things that people can do in terms of ceremony and ritual and all of that. So if it's something that's helpful for you, pick up my book, Recovering Your Sacredness. You can get it on my website or Amazon, and that has some practical things that can help us move towards that sacredness.
Se me olvidó el libro en mi nightstand. So I was like looking for it. I was like, no, I wanted to hold it up. But aquí está. Yes, Recovering Your Sacredness. It will. And I told Maestro this when we spoke a couple days ago. I said, it was one of those books that I couldn't put down, but like you have to put it down every now and then, because there's so much on every page that you want to breathe into it, and so it's something that you're going to want to just keep with you at all times. So Maestro, I don't know how to thank you for showing up, I extend my gratitude to you, to your ancestors, to Susana, for giving you that blessing, allowing you to bless all of us, right? And so, La Sokamati, Ometeo, I am in such deep gratitude to you. And I hope that this is the first of many platicas between us. And thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you all to everybody who was here. Again, this recording will be available to you just after this plática. And I hope you'll join us next week with Dr. Manuel Samaripa, who runs the Chicano Institute, or the Institute of Chicana Psychology. And nos vemos la semana que viene. Thank you all. Adiós, Maestro. Gracias.
Okay. Bye-bye.